My name is Michael Rodela, and I'm going to talk about the history of the Rodela family. To begin, I speculate that my family had been in Mexico before the Mexican-American War in 1846 to 1848, where my family lived in a territory that was claimed to be Mexico's land. Mexico had trouble attracting immigrants ever since its creation, so unless my ancestors were European investors or something, I speculate that they were in Mexico before it became an independent nation. Speaking of independence, after the Texas Revolution, Texas claimed that it had all the land that bordered the Rio Grande, while Mexico claimed the border was in the Nueces River. When Texas was annexed by the U.S., President Polk sent General Zachary Taylor into disputed territory and was met with opposition to the Mexican army. A battle broke out north of the Rio Grande, and the war had begun. After many losses, including their capital, Mexico finally gave in, and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed. This then turned 100,000 Mexicans into American citizens, including my ancestors, I believe. I believe that it is possible some family left to Mexico after mistreatment by U.S. settlers, but some family decided to stay. During the Civil War, many Hispanics were divided on issues the war has. Some joined the Confederates due to their resentment of the loss of Mexican-American War. They also were proponents in the Mexican federalism, where they believed states should have more power. Meanwhile, others would join the Unions since they did not believe in slavery ever since Mexico banned it during their time, or they did not believe in the social standing that they were going to have under the Confederates. This led to many Tejanos fighting each other during the Civil War. In the late 19th century, the first ancestor I can focus on is my great-grandfather, who was born and raised in Isleta, Texas. The community of Isleta was actually between the Rio Grande, as the river was rounded on both sides, making it some sort of an island. However, in 1831, it went to the north side of the river, and after the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, it became part of the U.S. The community of Isleta was a great center of influence for Hispanics after the Civil War, and is probably why my great-grandpa lived there. My great-grandmother was from Chihuahua, and they married my grandpa. Later on, he and his family moved to El Paso, where my grandpa Arturo Rodela, the youngest, was born in 1928. My grandfather had lived during the Great Depression, so my grandpa and family had to struggle with life there by working. Many of my grandparents' relatives joined the military, where one of my grandpa's brothers joined the Marauders in Burma, and another was a crewmate on the USS New Jersey. My grandpa's sisters even joined the Navy. At the age of 19, my grandfather joined the U.S. Army in 1948. He took part in the Korean War and became a prisoner of war, but was able to escape. After many struggles that the Korean War brought, my grandfather left the Army in 1952. When he was in El Paso, Operation Wetback had already been in occurrence, and Border Patrol had even asked my grandfather for his documents, and were embarrassed when they actually discovered he was a soldier of the Army. Later on, he met my grandma and married. He then decided to move to Los Angeles, where most of his family moved to. The reason most of them had moved was to earn higher wages, as my grandfather was earning $3.50 an hour at Sears compared to working $1 an hour here in El Paso. My dad was born soon in LA as the second oldest in 1958 with his twin brother. My grandparents eventually had 2 more boys. They all lived in the neighborhood of Pico Rivera. About 10 years later, my grandpa was told that the smog in LA was affecting his health, and he was forced to move back into El Paso, where it was less deadly for his health. They bought their house in the 60s, and I've lived there ever since. After all his education in UTEP, my dad became a teacher and eventually met my mom and married her in 1994. I was born in 1997 and decided to come to UTEP, where I received an opportunity to stay, and that is how I got here. Thank you. And here is my annotated bibliography. and all the other citations. Thank you for your time.